Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our August 11th Town Hall. Father Scott Brown here, welcoming you. I'm gonna small talk for just a few more minutes. We've got 119 people and counting on the call tonight, so I'm gonna keep welcoming you with some small talk while Stephanie admits the rest of the folks into the room. We're up to 125 and counting, so welcome. Hope your week is going well. Hope you're getting excited about next week to return to campus. We're thrilled to welcome all of our students back next week. Can't wait to see you all too, parents. 126 and counting. I'm gonna jump in. This is being recorded, so those of you who couldn't make it live, I'm speaking to you now, welcoming you as well, TMI family. Glad to have you. I'm going to ask our chaplain, Father Ben Nelson, to open us with prayer. Ben?
Be glad to. Thank you, Father Scott. Gracious God, please bless this school year ahead. Fill it with compassion for those making difficult decisions. Fill it with comfort to parents wondering how to manage home, work, and school. Fill it with strength for the teachers navigating new ways of learning. Bless this school year ahead. Remind us to see our neighbors as ourselves and Christ in all we meet. Bless the school year ahead, remembering that God goes before us and claims us as beloved. Bless the school year ahead. Allow us to trust your grace in our lives and hope for what is to come. Be with us this year. Grant us your wisdom, Lord, that we continue to seek it, and help us to look for signs of love in all those around us. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father Ben. Father Ben is the new face to our community. I can't wait for you all to meet him. Your sons and daughters, grandsons, granddaughters will love him as well. You'll see some more new faces on the call a little bit later. But it's my role to welcome you to this town hall. We have these quarterly, so this is our first one for this academic year. The next one will be on November the 10th. And so we'll keep the same rhythm. We'll send you the heads up a few weeks in advance, give you a chance to submit questions, and then we'll address as many of those as we can. I'm going to take a couple of introductory remarks and then jump right into your questions. We're really fired up about next week. Our enrollment, I'll wait till the last minute to tell you our enrollment because believe it or not, it continues to grow. But we're going to set a record for the largest enrollment in school history yet again this year. We are nearing 500, which would break the previous record of 487. So exciting days ahead for the TMI community. One of the things I want to update you on as a community is Panther Park. I told you a few months ago, returning families and even new families had heard about the hopes to add a new Panther Park drop-off pickup pickleball shaded structure on the backside of Ayers Hall, where you pick up and drop off your children. That project is slower so that we can get it right. We're addressing some long-term issues regarding drainage for future buildings and other things. And in order to really make sure that that park is supported with good infrastructure, we want to get it right. And so I would think in the next couple of weeks, you'll see some construction moving some dirt around there. But be patient, the park is coming. It's just, Father Scott is sometimes known for over-promising when it comes to projects, and I told you you'd see a park for the first day of school. You won't, but it's still on the horizon. Stay tuned. I'm going to jump right into our questions that you submitted. We grouped them into categories that are similar. I was really surprised you actually had questions about COVID. I didn't think you would have any COVID-related questions, and so I was shocked to see that a few of you had questions. In all sincerity, most of our talk tonight will be about your COVID questions, and you ask great questions. All those questions are wonderful and welcomed. I'll open my COVID remarks by telling you something you probably know, and that's that everyone has an opinion about COVID. Everyone has a station they watch or a site they prefer or an expert they like to quote. And I just want to remind everyone that not everyone watches your station. Not everyone agrees with your opinion. COVID is a tricky conversation because there's diversity of thought. I could read you the questions that came in from you parents, and read you examples of how those two questions are framed completely differently from two different perspectives, hoping for two different outcomes. Just remember, COVID is not as easy as a conversation as it may be in your own head. I also want to remind you that COVID has been tragic. We've had TMI faculty and staff hospitalized with COVID. We've lost loved ones of TMI faculty and staff to COVID. COVID has cost us lives. Some of you parents have lost loved ones to COVID. COVID has been tragic. And I want to make sure we remember the tragedy that it's been for some of our families. And I want to remind you that we're a community. And so let's keep the main thing as we talk about our response for this coming year. Here's the main thing, regardless of where you fall on COVID, I think you'll agree with this. In-person instruction and on-campus activities is far and away the best path forward for students and teachers. Being on campus every single day, experiencing the TMI experience, activities, sports, extracurriculars, homecoming, parades, pass and reviews, all of that is TMI, and doing that in person is the most important thing and the main thing. And I think we all agree on that. So because we believe that that's who we are at our best, we are not offering remote instruction this year. We won't offer that option for our families. So we're concerned for the mental health of our community, especially our students, and missing school and virtual instruction is not good for them. And so we're gonna do everything in our power to make sure that all students and all faculty are on campus all the time. So the policy is really intended to fulfill that desire. The other thing I'll tell you about our COVID response is it's our COVID response for today. We will continue to make decisions in real time that make sense for this time. And I'll talk to you a little bit at the end about how we will assess the timing. So in short, the policy is this: masks will be required indoors for all faculty and students, vaccinated or unvaccinated. Indoor, mask required, vaccinated and unvaccinated. So let me flesh that out a little bit. I know the risk for kids, students under 18, youth to be hospitalized or severely sick. I know that that risk for COVID is extremely low. But if a child is exposed to COVID, the likelihood of them being hospitalized is low, but the likelihood of them missing school is guaranteed. And again, at home means no instruction. At home means no athletics. At home means no TMI experience. So why not require the vaccine, some of you have said. First of all, our school attorneys have been very clear that at this point, we can't require the vaccine for minors, for students. And even if we could require the vaccine for those under the age of 18 who are eligible, I'm not sure that we would today. Maybe one day we could require that vaccine, but I don't think that day is today. Not to mention that we're a 6th through 12th grade school, which means that there's a portion of our community that's not even eligible age-wise to receive the vaccine. So we can't require a vaccine that's not even available to all of our student body, and our students interact all day. We would never put 6th graders in a corner by themselves because they're the unvaccinated and not allow them to have the TMI experience. That's not who we are. Some of you have said, well, why not let the vaccinated remain unmasked? First of all, vaccinated unmasked can still be asymptomatic and COVID carriers, and spread COVID. We're seeing that data a lot right now. Vaccinated, unmasked, COVID positive, spreading the virus. And we don't want students and faculty to have to quarantine. So even if you're vaccinated and unmasked, you could cause someone else to go home because they've been exposed to you. And therefore, we want everybody on campus. That's not an option. You may say, well, that's not the case. If the unvaccinated had to wear a mask, then no one would have to go home. And I ask you this, help me think through how we would enforce who's vaccinated and who's unvaccinated. I have some options. Option one is we give every teacher and staff member a roster. And on that roster, it says, this is who's vaccinated and this is who's not vaccinated. This would be assuming that we actually had that information from every one of you. Okay, then every teacher and staff would have to begin class by looking around and checking the roster. My point is it would be a nightmare. We could not enforce a spreadsheet of who's vaccinated and who's unvaccinated when kids are walking past us in the halls and at lunch and in the classrooms. The other option is, well, why don't you put a sticker on them or a lanyard? Maybe the orange lanyard is vaccinated and the black lanyard is unvaccinated, or whatever other way we have to designate. And I'll tell you, I don't like that idea either, because anything that creates an us versus them is not TMI. We had students last year, some of your own students fit in this category, who had to go home for some period of time because they were exposed to somebody with COVID. And when your student returned, we had some students that didn't sit with your child at lunch, picked on your child, and like they had the virus and couldn't be in their presence. We have an honor code, and our students are kinder than most students, and they're great, and I love our students, but they're also children. And anything that creates an identifier of an us versus them, vaccinated versus an unvaccinated, opens up the potential for behavior that is not okay in our community. I am not okay with anything that separates them and us. So some of you are thinking, Father Scott, I get it, but it's my choice. If I want my child to wear a mask, that is my choice. And I would say that's true and incomplete. That's a Father Scottism. It is your choice. That is right. It is your choice as to whether or not your child wears their mask at home, at your church, at your outing, in your car. But it is not your choice on our campus. Our campus is all of our campus. Whether or not students can get vaccinated or not, let me say that again. On this campus where some students can't get vaccinated and some staff can't get vaccinated, it's not your choice, because your choice impacts others. We belong to one another. We love our neighbor. And parents, I would use it in the same category as a uniform. Uniforms are not your choice. You don't get to wake up, parents, and say, you know what? I'm choosing not to let my kid not wear the uniform today. They want to wear a pink skirt, they can wear a pink skirt. That's my choice. Actually, no, it's not. We have a uniform and you got to follow it. And wearing a mask indoor is just an extension of the uniform. So it's your choice off campus, but it's not your choice on this campus. I will say this, vaccinated teachers, which most of our teachers were vaccinated on our campus, so we do have most of that information. Vaccinated teachers will have the choice to remove their masks while lecturing at the front of the room, provided that they're distanced from the first row of students. Of course, if they walk about the class, get close to students, get within that 6 feet, then they're going to put their mask on. Our classrooms are well ventilated, and we're confident that teachers standing in the front of the room, vaccinated, can remove their mask, and the risk is extremely low. And that's a risk we're willing to take so that teachers can be articulate and heard, especially in some of our language classes. If there's an exposure and somebody is sick on our campus, we're going to send them home, just like we would last year. Now, remember, if your child is wearing a mask and they're next to the person who goes home because they're sick and they were wearing a mask, two people wearing a mask means the sick person's got to go home, but it means the person who was exposed to them does not have to quarantine, does not have to go home. They get to stay on campus. What a great gift. Furthermore, if your child is vaccinated, they don't have to quarantine. They get to stay on campus. So one of the pluses to being vaccinated, in addition to the scientific data that says that if they get COVID, it's going to be a lesser case. If you are vaccinated, exposed, no quarantine for your child whatsoever. They'll be on campus all year, provided they're not sick themselves. We would love to have 100% of our eligible students and 100% of our adults vaccinated. That would be great. We have invited you to share your vaccination status with us through our nurse, Stacy, and through the survey we sent out. We also understand that vaccination is not a possibility for all of our families. And quite frankly, it may never be. Not every one of our students should be vaccinated per their own doctor. And there are adults that have made that choice as well, and we respect that. Since we don't have every person's information, we're making the best decision we can make today. So if your child happens to be exposed to somebody who has tested positive, Nurse Stacy will do the contact tracing, and she'll, so therefore we'll have assigned seats in class so we know where kids were sitting. So if I was sitting next to Dr. Harris and I tested positive, then Nurse Stacy's going to do the contact tracing. If it turns out that I was wearing my mask, even though I'm positive, and she was wearing her mask, no quarantine necessary for Dr. Harris. Let's say Dr. Harris and I had lunch together. We were outside where you could be unmasked. And during that lunch, we spent more than 15 minutes outside unmasked. Outside's not even actually a good example because it's outside and that's different. But let's say for some reason inside we were without mask and we were within 15 feet. And I'm positive in this hypothetical situation. Dr. Harris is vaccinated. She does not have to quarantine. Nurse Stacy calls Dr. Harris's mother. This is hypothetical. We're not going to call Dr. Harris's mother. And says, Dr. Harris has been exposed. Her mother says, well, she's vaccinated. Nurse Stacy says, I'm going to need proof of that vaccination. As soon as mom sends, or dad, or whomever, parent, guardian, sends proof of that vaccination, Dr. Harris does not have to quarantine. However, parents, if you say my child's vaccinated and I'm not sharing that information with you, then your child's gonna have to quarantine. We're gonna need the vaccination card in order to allow your child to stay on campus and not have to quarantine if they have a positive exposure. So if your child has to go home for any reason, again, there's no remote instruction. So Dr. Harris and Mr. Counts, our Dean of Faculty, will work with our faculty to help make sure that your child stays as informed and included as possible, but they will not be Zooming into classes or having remote instruction. Again, recapping, vaccination, masks prevents quarantining. Let me address some other questions you've asked about lunch, for example. A lunch will still be outside, although inside is an option this year. We'll have limited seating in the refectory. We'll have 3 serving spaces in the refectory. This is all, again, to start the year. We'll serve all food in to-go carriers again, and we'll encourage students to go grab their food and then go eat outside. We won't split between the gyms and the cafeteria and the cafe like we did last year. However, Cafe 18, it will be open in the morning for breakfast, and it'll be open after school for snacks. But in the middle of the day, the cafe as a cafe will shut down to prep for lunch, where it will be a grab and go station. So sandwiches, salads, wraps, fruit, chips, bottles of water. So if your student does not want to go upstairs and get the hot lunch, they can go through the cafe, grab a grab and go item and eat outside. Again, we'll encourage students to eat outside, even though the refectory will be open. As far as visitors, you all parents coming to campus and visiting teams coming to campus for athletic events, if it's a football game, we're going to be outside. No masks needed. It's going to feel like pre-COVID outside. It's going to be wonderful. If you want to wear your mask outside, you're welcome to do so. But for indoor events, we're going to ask you to follow the same policy, parents. We're going to ask you to put on a mask if you step inside. Parents, I'm asking you to do this out of support, out of respect, out of partnership. But parents, I'm not going to get in an argument with you. If you walk in the chapel and I say, Mr. I can't even say, I'll use Brown. Let's use my own last name. Mr. Brown, need you to put on your mask. And Mr. Brown says, I'm vaccinated and I'm an American and I don't have to put on my mask. I'm going to say, Mr. Brown, I don't want to get in an argument with you. Out of respect for our students and out of a commitment to the community that we believe in, that we belong to, I'm asking you to do what everybody else is doing. As a commitment to loving your neighbor, I don't care about your political opinion or your perceived human rights. I'm asking you to do what the community is doing because the community is doing it. So what are the factors that would then lead TMI to make a different decision? What would change from where we are today to something new? Well, our leadership team meets weekly. We talk COVID every single week. We're committed to a bi-weekly update for you about COVID. I would love to announce a mask optional one day soon. I don't think today's the day to do that. Vaccination status right now, of those reported, you asked me this question as well, of those reported, which is about 350 families, when you include all of our faculty and staff and students, it's closer to 500 that we would like to hear from. We've heard from about 350. Of those we received responses from, 92% of our community is vaccinated. That's great news. 92% is a high number, but that's of the 350 that responded. So honestly, if we had more data, we could make new decisions, but that's based off the data I have. So I have to assume that the other 100 to 150 people whom we haven't heard from are not vaccinated, which changes the number dramatically or drastically. So more data means more input, means better decisions. However, Given our commitment to in-person instruction, extracurriculars, TMI program, wearing a mask indoor seems like an easy compromise for the betterment of the community so we can do the main thing, which is be on campus all day, every day for the whole year. Some have asked, what sources do we use in making our decision? We have a consulting physician group of Dr. Reddig, Dr. Hilliard, and Dr. Patel. We bounce everything off of them, along with Stacy Smith, our school nurse. We also talk to independent schools and Episcopal schools in town. I can tell you that every single San Antonio Episcopal and independent school has the same or similar policy, mask indoors to begin the year, every one of them. So that's all of our peer schools in ISAS and all of our peer schools in SAES are starting the year with a similar policy. I speak with their heads bi-weekly and we stay informed and communicate together. We would all love to change to a mask optional policy at some point, but that day is not today. So indoor mask policy for all independent Episcopal schools. We also stay informed with health organizations across the globe, but frankly, we take all that into consideration and then we do what makes sense for us as an independent private school based on listening to the experts, but also talking to our physicians and doing what's best for TMI. Travel for overnight trips is TBD, to be determined, but the good news is there's no field trips right away anyway. So some of you asked about the Washington, DC trip for 8th graders or the coast trip for middle schoolers. Those are spring events, and let's see where we are in a couple of weeks or months from now, and we'll make that decision another day. I want to stop here for just a second and remind you that at any point in this town hall, you can put questions about any questions you have in the chat, and we'll try to circle back to them at the end. Perhaps you've already been doing that. If you have, great. If you haven't, know that that chat is available, and we'll try to circle back. Again, COVID is the biggest topic of the night, but there are other things to talk about as well. Back to my remarks, I want to remind you that I'm sure some of you are thrilled to hear that masks will be required indoors to start the year. Some of you wish that we would extend that policy to mask wearing all day, every day, in every spot of this campus. Some of you are completely against any mask and think that we should burn them all and move on. We have a variety of opinions in our community, but we are a community. And again, let's ground ourselves in what we all do believe. We all believe that in-person instruction with face-to-face interaction and extracurricular activities and athletics is essential to our students' mental health, social health, emotional health, and their formation. Let's not forget that. We're going to be on campus. We're going to follow these guidelines, and the potential that your child will miss school this year if we follow these guidelines is extremely low. That's the main thing. We just finished a 2-week Panther preview with our 6th grade students. We had almost 38 of our 45 6th graders on campus for 2 full weeks. It was fantastic. Parents on the call, if you had a 6th grader in the Panther preview, you would agree with me because I talked to most of you. It was fantastic. Our kids saw each other. They were hugging each other. They lit up like a Christmas tree. They were fired up to be here. And you know what? They wore a mask when they were in English and math class. They spent most of the day outside. It was wonderful. There was no issue. Don't let a mask policy indoors steal the joy that your children are feeling coming back to campus. That was a small taste for us of what the entire year will be like. We've had back to school events now as of last night with all of our grades. They are fired up. They're running up to each other and excited to see each other. There's so much joy on this campus. The theme for this year is, again, I say rejoice. We just finished all of the parent orientations as well. You were smiling and happy, literally giddy to see your friends. There's reason to rejoice on this campus. Don't let wearing a mask indoor to start the year steal your joy. Let's remember the main thing, and that's getting our kids on campus. Instruction in the classroom, the TMI experiences, sports are gonna happen. We got Friday night lights coming around the corner with volleyball indoor and football outside and cheerleaders outside. It's gonna be so exciting to be back. Let's rejoice in the things that are exciting and then do what we have to do to stay on campus as often as possible. All right, that's my COVID remarks. I'm gonna remind you to put your questions about COVID or anything in the chat, and I'll circle back for them at the end of the year. I'm going to move on to your next question. We're going to be done by 7 for sure. Your next question for the night was about faculty turnover. A few of you asked noted that there's been a number of faculty turnover in the last 6 to 12 months and wondered if I had any remarks on that. I will tell you in general that across independent schools, the amount of turnover is higher than normal across our country in independent schools. COVID has been tough on a lot of people, and so turnover is high across the country, and numbers have been higher for us, but not an alarming number. I'll tell you, we just finished day 3 of faculty in service. One of the questions some of you asked is, how do we make sure that new faculty and staff understand our culture, understand our community? I finished a presentation on the past, present, and future of TMI, getting everybody up to date with who we are. There's a lot of energy in our department chairs. None of our department chairs, and let's be honest, faculty are the heartbeat of our campus. None of our department chairs are brand new. They've all been here a long time. So that's exciting to have that continuity and that leadership. They help support teachers as well. Dr. Harris and Mr. Counts, who you'll hear from in a little bit, are new to TMI, but they're not new to education. Dr. Harris and Mr. Counts, our associate head of school and our dean of faculty, have almost 40 years of experience. So they're not new to classrooms. They're not new to formation. They're not new to raising great human beings. All of their experience, most of their experience, if not all their experience, has been in independent and Episcopal schools. They bring a load of experience to TMI. They just need to learn the TMI culture, which they're doing every single day with the help of some wonderful people who've helped them learn who we are and introduce them to us and us to them. So I'm unbelievably confident in the leadership we have and excited about our future. Dr. Harris is going to actually take the next set of questions. This is in her lane. She's the associate head responsible for all things teaching and learning. So Dr. Harris, this next set of questions is really about onboarding new families and new students. How does TMI onboard its new families? And then what if you Zoomed last year, which really means you're a new student this year, and how's TMI going to welcome back my student who may have spent all of last year off campus, even though they're not new this year?
Thank you, Father Scott. So good evening, everyone. As Father Scott shared, our teachers have been back since Monday of this week. It feels like longer than that. And we have jumped right in to figure out what are other options to make sure that students who haven't been here feel comfortable, and the same for parents. We have some families who started at TMI sight unseen, who actually started last year without having been on campus. And I think that speaks volumes about you, the parent community, and our faculty, because they felt welcome even without stepping foot on the campus. So next Wednesday, which is the 18th, we will have an opportunity at new student orientation and at new parent orientation for new families and new students and new parents to visit campus. If you are not new, but weren't able to come last year and to be introduced to the campus in person, then please feel free to take advantage of that. And we welcome you all. Again, if you're truly new, you have probably focused in on that and have those dates on your calendar. But if you just didn't get the chance to have the TMI experience, we are here and looking forward to welcome you to campus next Wednesday. A reminder will go out this Friday in News and Notes. It will have the exact time of the student event. You have time, I believe, at 9 a.m. to drop your child off and then get settled and join us outside the chapel at 9:15 for the parent event, which will end around 10:15. And then you can pick up your child at 10:30 and commence with the remainder of your day. But again, if you haven't been here on campus, feel free to join us at that time. If you are receiving this and it's not live, so you weren't able to come tonight, and you're watching it tomorrow or the following day, reach out with questions if there's something that you're not able to put here in the chat. Again, there will be links and takeaways in the documentation that goes out Friday in News and Notes. And the last thing I'll say about returning to campus is that although we'll have on masks during the day and inside, but not outside, we are not going to let that impede our being together. On August 31st, we are welcoming everyone back to campus. That will be an opportunity for parents to get to socialize. You haven't seen one another in quite some time, I'm sure. And it will just give you a chance here with your children's teachers to socialize and to congregate. We will be outside. We will be mostly in the amphitheater. Light refreshments will be served. This is an adult-only event, so different types of adult refreshments will also be served at that event. So again, this is just for the grown-ups, but this is your opportunity to return to your campus. TMI belongs to all of us. So we're looking forward to seeing you on August 31st. Again, if you don't have that date saved on your calendar, please block it off at that time.
Great. Dr. Harris, we have more questions coming in on the chat. I was peeking at those, but some of those are questions we're going to address, like this next one. Some parents had submitted questions in advance about the uniform, in particular around the process with Lands End. So tell us about, is Lands End the only company I can use? And what if I'm having a hard time with Lands End? Give me an update on that.
So thank you all for those of you that have reached out to share that you've had a little bit of a problem, whether it has to do with sizing or Lands End being on back order. We are aware of that. And what we'd like to say is it's our preferred vendor. It is not the only vendor. We're not checking tags. And we have visited with a community of, a committee of parents who have shared with us. They think this is the best way moving forward. These are the best colors moving forward. Here's an opportunity for us to use our brand and so on and so forth. Where we are today is not where we thought we would be a couple of months ago. So we understand that Lands End is short. Right now, if you want to go to American Eagle, American Outfitters, just some other vendors, just to make sure that you're sticking with the same colors. We're not looking for the logo. We're not going to reach out and call you and say, this is a lighter tan or a darker tan, or your middle school daughter has a light gray shirt. That's not what we're doing. And we want to make sure that this is as easy on you as possible. And we're working with Lands End to see what that back order looks like. Will it be sooner rather than later? If it's later, then we'll need to revisit that and come out to all of you to say, here's what we're doing in writing, and here's how much time we've given you to go out and look for some other alternatives. So we are aware that there is a back order, but just know that we're not looking for logos right now, and we are working with Lands End to see if they can provide us with some additional options.
Great.
Again, put things in the chat if I didn't answer your specific question about dress code, but the bottom line is we want your kids here on campus. So the shade of gray doesn't matter. 50 shades, 2 shades, we're good with that.
Great. Dr. Harris, there's 4 questions in this next grouping of student life questions, and you can take them all. So what about the DC trip for 8th graders? I'm actually going to say that I answered that in the overnight trip part earlier. So the other 3 are, will students have lockers this year? Will the Spirit store be open this year? And last year we took off on Wednesdays and we stayed home for community days. Is that happening this year? So those 3 are all yours.
Thank you. So will students have lockers? Yes. Will the community store be open or Spirit store be open? Yes. If you're not able to come in person, there is always an online option for you to be able to order paraphernalia and Spirit attire from the store. In terms of Community Wednesdays, that will not be an option this year. Our goal is to be together and to support one another in person as much as possible. So we will have in-person instruction Monday through Friday, unless there's a school holiday that's already listed on the calendar.
Great. And Dr. Harris, talk about middle school sports. When do those start? Football, volleyball, cheer. When do middle school sports begin?
So middle school sports start during 7th period. So for the fall, we will have volleyball, football, and cheer and soccer. Those will all take place in the fall. We'll have some different options in the winter. But right now, every day, middle school students will have PE 7th period, which will end at 3:30. Great.
So if your child is interested in one of those sports, they have not missed anything if they're in the middle school. That doesn't start until you get back to campus.
That's correct. Okay. And actually the first day of school, which will be the 23rd, that's the first full day of classes, Monday the 23rd. So they will have PE at the end of that day, last period.
Great. Okay, this next question, we're going to tag team Dr. Harris. The first part of it is, if I have an issue on campus and I don't know who to go to, where do I turn? Explain the role of Dr. Harris versus Father Scott versus Mr. Counts versus Dr. Fletcher. And then the follow-up question to that is, how does TMI handle mental health conditions, anxiety, OCD in our school? So I'll take the first part and then I'll give you the second. Sound like a deal? All right. So I know that a lot of you wonder, who do I go to if I have a question? Let me say a little bit about my role versus Dr. Harris's role in hopes that this will clarify things for our lanes, as we call them. For me, my role as the head of school is the chief visionary. I'm the community setter. I set the tone for who we are as a community. I focus on board relations. I focus on strategic planning. I focus on advancing the school. I manage all of the departments on campus, including academics, which is Dr. Harris's department. Dr. Harris is the head of all things teaching and learning. If it's related to student development in the classroom or extracurriculars, if it has to do with instruction or assessments, if it has to do with student life, that's Dr. Harris's lane. She runs that department, reports to me, and she manages it. So parents, let me say this to you all. I love to visit with you and I love to hear from you. And I'm happy to see you. But if your question for me, when you call to set up an appointment, is about classrooms or grades or schedules or discipline or conduct or teachers, I'm going to ask you if you've met with Dr. Harris. And if you say to me, no, I just want to talk to you, I'm going to say to you, I'm not talking to you till you talk to Dr. Harris, because that's just going to save us all a bunch of time, because I'm going to send you to her anyways. Laura Cardona is my new administrative assistant and communication support. She offices right next to me. If you call the head of school's office and say, I want to see Father Scott, she may ask you some questions, not because she's rude. She's actually the opposite of rude. She's lovely and kind and a perfect fit for TMI. But she's going to ask you, can I ask you what you want to talk to Father Scott about? And if the meeting is about students or teaching or learning or curriculum or grades or assessments or athletics or anything to do with teaching and learning, I'm going to ask you to go see Dr. Harris first. Within her leadership team are some more wonderful people, and I'll let her tell you all about them.
Thank you. So one we have on the call this evening, and he has shipped it on my screen, but Mr. Fred Counts comes to us after having his most recent experience at the Baldwin School in Philadelphia and was the dean of students for 10 years. So he's switching from students to parents. And before that was in the state of Texas at St. Andrews in Austin. So I'd like to think that Fred wanted to come back to Texas. Fred is our dean of faculty. Mr. Counts, would you say hello before I jump into your roles and responsibilities?
Hello all. Nice to see everybody. Looking forward to seeing you in person as I can. Thank you, Dr. Harris.
Of course, thanks. We got to work on your Texas twang. So I have the benefit of having a very strong academic team. Fred Counts, again, is the dean of faculty. His role is to support faculty. That means when we have new faculty who really aren't sure what the best teaching method is, if we have candidates that are coming in, are they a fit for TMI? It's helpful to have more than one set of eyes on that. He also assists with professional development. In terms of your students, he serves on the student wellness team and is able to say, from a faculty perspective, here is what we can do best to remove obstacles from teachers and to provide the best learning environment for students. Also a part of that team, we have Lucy Adams, who is our Director of Academic Support. We have Lisa Condry. These are both names that you know. She is our school counselor. We have Father Ben Nelson, who joins us this year as our chaplain. What's important to note is that Father Ben, Mr. Counts, Lisa Condry, Dr. Fletcher, and Lucy Adams, again, are not new to supporting students. And what that means is that if your child is struggling a little bit in class, we will know. We will not reach out to you in November or December to say things aren't going well this semester. I've had that call as a parent, and it did not go well for me or for the teacher on the other end of the line when I thought Thanksgiving is next week. Why am I just finding out now that there's a problem in class? And that is not a situation that we want you to be in. We want all of us to have regular communication, and that may involve your child's advisor, may also be a part of these conversations. Is there something going on at home? Is there something going on in class? Is there a particular group of students that your child doesn't work well with? Is there something that they're not getting from the teacher? These are conversations that we are going to have on a consistent basis internally because you trust us. When you enrolled your children at TMI, we agreed to a mutual covenant. And what that means is you are trusting us to teach them, and we are trusting you to reinforce what we do in school at home. So to keep up our end of the bargain, we will have regular communication with each other to make sure that they are on track academically. And from a wellness standpoint, is there anything that you need to know? Is there anything we need to know? Is there anything we can do in the classroom to make things better for them? So again, Lisa Condry is the counselor. Lucy Adams is the academic director of academic support. She still teaches the class and she's excited to do that and multitask, but she's also the director of academic support. And you may be thinking, my child would do a little better if they had more time in this area. Or my child's pediatrician has shared with me that they need a small accommodation. Lucy Adams would be the person to speak with you and to sort of be the intermediary between you and the faculty to say, this is something that we can support, or this is not the best thing in our wheelhouse. What we do very well. The things that may not be in our wheelhouse, we will share that with you because again, we have an obligation to you. So those individuals make up the wellness team in addition to Nurse Stacy, who is on this call. So when we think about wellness, when we think about health, when we think about students being overloaded, when we think about what's best for them, we will sit down and have a conversation. And if we need to reach out to you, then we will. But it's important for you to know that there are individuals here on campus that care about your babies, and we're doing all that we need to do to make sure that they're successful.
I was muted. Great. Thank you, Dr. Harris. That concludes the remarks that you sent in advance. I'm going to turn and attempt to answer some of your remarks that you sent in the chat. Again, my hope is to answer some clarifying questions that you brought up. And I just want to remind you, you guys are funny. I love you all. I love new families. I love returning families. But your questions are quite entertaining because sometimes you don't leave your opinions to be wondered about. It's very clear where you stand. But I can tell you, parents, that I could literally partner you up. That's what I want to do one day, is I just want to take the question that's clearly leading from a place of, I think mask policy is ridiculous, and match you up with the clearly articulated question of, I think this is the best thing you've ever decided, and just watch you two talk to each other. Some of you are both physicians. That would be so fun. Like, get these two physicians together to talk, and then I'll just sit back and I'll ask the questions. But in all seriousness, this is a difficult conversation, and I'm not trying to make light of something that is oh so difficult. So some of you ask questions about, will my child have to quarantine if they've had COVID? Because there's some proof that having COVID is as effective as having the vaccine itself. It depends. The data says if you had COVID when? 6 months ago, 3 months ago, 12 months ago, that data is different. And I can get two physicians whom I've spoken to who would disagree on that. So at this point, having COVID in the past does not qualify you to be exempt from being quarantined. Vaccinated will allow you to get out of quarantine, but just because you had COVID in the past doesn't mean that you can get out of quarantine at this point. I want to be clear because I said something, I wanted to, somebody asked me the question, they said, let me find the exact question. Just to be clear, a masked child who gets exposed to a masked COVID positive child, will that child have to quarantine? And the answer is no. If I am masked, vaccinated or unvaccinated does not matter. If I am masked and the person I was sitting next to who tested positive for COVID is masked as well, if the two of us are masked, I do not have to quarantine. So thus the heart of the reason for asking you to mask in the classroom. So the two things that get you out of having to quarantine are if the person who tested positive and the other person are both masked, vaccinated or not, or if I'm vaccinated, I don't have to quarantine. I hope that's crystal clear. Let me go back to the top. I love the mask policy. I hate the mask policy. I love the mask policy. I hate the mask policy. I'm just quoting your questions and comments. I think it's the greatest thing. I think it's the worst thing. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I hope you get the point. If this is new to you, and I'm being dead serious here, if this information that we're going to require masks indoor is new, is so alarming to you that you feel like we pulled a bait and switch on you in terms of your child's enrollment, please email me, scott.brown@tmi-asa.org. We are not attempting to bait and switch anybody. If asking your child to wear a mask inside so that we can all be on campus every day is so against what you thought you signed up for, that you don't think you can be a part of this community anymore, I will gladly have a conversation with you and would never, ever, ever hold you to a contract if you feel like we baited and switched you. That's not who we are. Drop off and pickup will be a little bit longer this year. At this point, until we get the new Panther Park done, it's going to be in the same location. Lands End question, I think we addressed. Yes, you can bring your son or daughter's younger sibling to orientation on the 18th. As long as you're going to take care of them, you're welcome to bring them. Somebody asked, don't you normally follow NISD? We follow NISD for some things. We follow NISD for weather days. We follow NISD for snowpocalypse information, so that we're making sure that we're closing school on the same day they are. But we don't follow NISD for blanket policies. We're an independent school and a private school, and we make the best decision we can make for our students based on the data we have. Some of you would clearly like to be on the next round of uniform decision making for color choices. Black and orange are our school colors, and we try to stay pretty neutral. I've got a good list going of those of you who would like to have input in the next uniform decision.
Father Scott?
Yes.
May I add something? There were
You can have anything you want.
Thank you. There were a few more questions about uniforms and retreats. And if it's okay with all of you, I'd like to put something in writing and send a link to Stephanie Gish, and she'll put it in news and notes so that you can specifically see what other options are and what the expectations are. Again, on Friday in news and notes, there will be information about grade level retreats and then specific information about dress code. The other note that I believe falls under me had to do with, pull that chat back up, had to do with the wellness meetings and academic progress meetings and how often will we meet. So right now we've talked about biweekly. That's not to say that if there is not an issue that has bubbled up, that we will just reach out to one another and say we need to meet now. I think specifically the question has to do with reaching out to parents in particular and saying, how do we define if there's a problem? I think when we see that your child's behavior is different, that their grades are different. So if they start the year one way and then we see a trend, then we will reach out to you. One of the things that was challenging for me as a parent, and it may or may not be a challenge for you, is that as our children get older, there is something to be said for responsibility and independence. However, they're still in your house, and we understand that. So we'll try to strike the appropriate balance, but initially having conversations with the students themselves and allowing them to advocate when they need to. But the great thing about this group is, for the most part, we're all parents. And so we know when we'd like to get a call, and we certainly won't wait too long and to bring you into the loop if we think it's necessary. Thank you.
Good additions. Dr. Harris, I actually have a question for you. I don't know the answer to this. For new student orientation on the 18th, what is the dress code for new student orientation?
That is a very good question. So I'm going to step out and make an executive decision here. It's the day before convocation. I say come as you are. We're happy to have folks back on campus. So I think you come, that's your last day of summer vacation. Consider that a dress day gift, because on Thursday, when we all worship together for the first time this school year, there will be a very different feel. and on campus on that day. So I say Wednesday, be casual, and I'll make sure, and Mr. Couch will make sure that the faculty is aware of that.
Great. That's a good transition into the question about chapel. Father Ben, will we be in chapel as a community? Last year, we only had one class at a time. What's the chapel plan for this year? Oh, do we have to unmute him? Oh,
I'm good now. Thank you, Father Scott. So the plan for chapel is that we are going to have masks in chapel, which will allow us to be together, which I am very happy and excited. And again, I say I am rejoicing over the fact that we'll all be together for chapel.
great. Every day we'll be 5 days a week back together in chapel. The mask policy really for indoors started with the conversation about chapel. It's too important to us. Daily worship all together. We want to be together every day. And if we got to wear a mask as we sit next to each other in order to be together every day, that's something I'm willing to do regardless of my personal opinions of masks, because community is important to me. Let me also make a plug for next Monday, August the 16th. You received a blast about more heart awareness. As you recall last year, many of you who were here last year remember, and we still remember Jackson Moore, who we lost way too early. The Moore family is friends of mine. I love them dearly. They have put their heart, literally, and soul into more heart awareness. And TMI is providing some screening for all students on August 16th, free of charge for heart screening. The blast went out. I would really encourage you to come take advantage of that and have your children screened on August the 16th. Some of you asked about the quarantine. What will happen if my child is exposed to someone who tested positive? What will be the quarantine period? For now, as we go into this year and begin this year, 5 days, after 5 days from the exposure, a PCR test on day 7 would allow your child to, negative PCR test on day 7 would allow your child to return out of quarantine, not the full 14 days like we had last year. Do they wear dress uniform or daily uniform for convocation? For the very first day, they'll just be in daily dress because it's a Thursday. It would be really confusing to make them wear Wednesday dress on a Thursday. So for the first day of school on convocation day, students are in their daily dress day, their normal Thursday uniform, which would be khaki skirt or skirts or shorts for girls, shorts or pants for boys, solid colors that we've talked about. Hopefully a Lands End shirt with the TMI logo on it. If not, a solid gray shirt for middle school, a solid white or black shirt for upper school. And then Friday are the retreats. They're all on campus. So everybody comes to campus at 8, you go home at 3:30, but while your students are here, we'll walk them through some fun activities on campus. The first day of instruction is Monday, August the 23rd. Dr. Harris, if you want to peruse the chat for just one more second and see if there's anything that you think. I realize I didn't get to all of your comments and questions. Please understand I like to pick on you because I love you dearly. And I hope I don't come across as being defensive or uggy, as my grandma would say. I just know that this is a tough conversation for all of us, but I am so excited about this school year and nothing's gonna steal my joy. We're gonna have almost 500 students on this campus and it's gonna be exciting. Core students on Thursday, where I don't have Major Claiborne on this call, so I'm hesitating, but I believe that Thursday uniform is, I'm not even gonna say it because I don't know. So I think I know what it is, but I'm not gonna say it. So those of you who asked what's the dress code for core kids on the first day, I'm gonna have the major send that out. Stephanie's gonna find that out for me and she's gonna put it in the email blast that comes out tomorrow. Deal? Okay. I have one more question. Indigo Keener asked me, what do I think of baked beans? My wife knows the answer to this. I don't like baked beans. I think baked beans are the devil's food. I don't like baked beans. I like pinto beans. I'm sorry. I like refried beans, but I don't like baked beans. I'm sorry. Okay. With that, I'll remind you that Dr. Harris likes baked beans. Father Ben likes baked beans, but I just don't like them. I'm sorry.
There are a few more dress code questions. I think it's what makes the most sense is for it all to be in news and notes on Friday. So what we want you to do is to think about these last few days at home with your babies and not have to worry about what should they wear on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or whenever. So we will take the guessing out of that so that you can get your last few board games in and whatever else you're doing and traveling and that good stuff. And news and notes will be very, very thorough on Friday. And worst case scenario, you can always shoot me an email at j.harris@tmi.sa.org. But I'm looking forward to seeing all of you soon. Baked beans, I don't know what to say to that. Are they a Texas staple?
I don't know. I just can't do it. I don't know. I don't like coleslaw either. Don't judge me. I did see one more question about, I mean, you got a million scenarios and I want to address them all. So email me with these, but somebody asked if a vaccinated individual is exposed to a positive case without a mask, they don't have to quarantine because they're vaccinated, but will they be required to have a PCR test on day 5? No. If they're vaccinated, no need for a PCR test until unless they became symptomatic. All right, a million scenarios for COVID coming our way. Ask those to me via email. We'll do the best we can. Don't let anything I said today steal the joy from the fact that 500 awesome human beings are going to be on this campus next Thursday as we deliver on our commitment to raise great human beings. I love you all. It is 3 minutes before 7 o'clock. I'm letting you out of class early. I look forward to seeing you all very soon. Go Panthers.